Introduction. Dark psychology and manipulation are broad-based phenomena that occur in almost every aspect in our social life. These perplexing tactics are aimed at interfering with someone else's decision-making, usually without his permission. This kind of interference is achieved implicitly through mind tricks such as temptation, diversion, and misdirection. The tricky nature of deception allows the phenomenon to appear in virtually infinite variations and several different contexts, from an effective tool for incident propaganda to altruistic steps in psychotherapy and even education. Indeed, social scientists have found that successful human decision-making and behavior change cannot be done without coercion. Manipulation is not exactly persuasion and is not always a bad thing. This mysterious phenomenon is situated between being a motivating behavior and a gray area. This gray area poses fundamental difficulties in characterizing manipulation and calculating its effect. A qualified manipulator, through dark psychology, adopts strategies that obscure his actions in a normative and legal manner. His complex and illusory manipulating techniques question the awareness of leading champions of an open society. In virtually every aspect, from politics to advertising, education, and even the most intimate relations, the challenge arises. For instance, how can we distinguish between decent and indecent propaganda? Where exactly is the line between fair and unreasonable market influence? How can people gain attention when they cannot pay attention to new ideas? Why do the social reformer, visionary, the pioneer question traditional wisdom and bring new perspectives? What is the most successful way to open a public discussion on critical, important topics that most find difficult to discuss? Exploring the issues here is helpful to gain a deeper understanding of the basic features of dark psychology, manipulation, deception, and techniques to avoid answering difficult issues that cannot be replied to effectively. Let's get started. Chapter 1. Meeting Our Dark Side. In psychology, the name shadow is given to a part of ourselves based on Carl Jung's theories. This shadow is our subconscious instincts. Our dark side faces are so much like a secret part of ourselves that we do not normally want to reveal ourselves. We may not be aware of this. We may be scared to deal with it. Yet, for the following advantages, it is best to visit our dark side. You should use your imagination and ingenuity to remember the rejected component of your own life. Some shadow exploration exercises concentrate on drawing, mind mapping, and the like. Association with our creative side will reinforce our link with this secret part of us all. You can restore any relationship for more honest self-examination and direct contact. Since we are concealed in other relationships, the more we see what we cover, the more we can appreciate certain relationships that are broken or ended for any apparent reason. You can recognize what you are projecting for others, which then shapes some of our views on other people. We all prefer to see what we expect of ourselves in others. Instead of understanding the other, we provide theories that the other's actions are based on what they know about us. We can almost immediately think the wonder, what would I do if I were him or her? This is a very good question. If you're mindful of this, don't use the thought to rashly assess someone's actions or feelings. You should be free from the guilt and remorse for our negative emotions and our poor behavior, of course. Indeed, we can see why the Catholic practice of confession is psychologically beneficial. In every possible way, we have to face our dark urges to be free of them. You can disfigure any negative feelings even unexpectedly when you go about your everyday routine. We need to reconcile ourselves with negative events and situations which unexpectedly upset us. Hopefully, you can gain true self-acceptance, more detailed comprehension of who you are and who you will be. We also have a dark side, the shadow of Jungian psychology. This side of the self has the dark urges, the dull inclinations in us. The secret aspect of the self is essential to know. There are signs here if you know the dark side very well. You know who your criticism, assumptions, and anger towards others represent your weakness. In particular, the psychological defensive mechanism called projection affects how we think about others. Sometimes we give them features which are our weaknesses. You acknowledge that the world has pain, evil, and suffering. Recognizing the evil around us will help us to realize the evil is inside us too. You know your words or acts will often convey fear and anxiety. Fear and anxiety are other emotions conveyed by the body or terms like when the heart grows up. You know that your words or deeds will show resentment and envy occasionally. Jealousy and resentment are rooted in egotism, which is very hard to remove. You know that your words or actions sometimes express covetousness and greed. Cupidity and greed arise from our addiction to this world's material and temporal objects. You know that your expressions often convey contempt, though contempt and disdain for other people emerge from being cold and hatred, the result of being unable to cope positively with anger. You are aware of your anxieties and fears. You are mindful of the jealousy and envious feelings. You know the greedy thoughts. You are conscious of your angry feelings. Being aware of such feelings, you can understand certain actions, including saying something which you find unintentional. You may not want to hurt other people sometimes, but deep inside, these feelings still exist, and we hurt people unintentionally. These negative feelings are best recognized and then processed through psychotherapy. Knowing the dark side helps you to start making those life changes. You will now learn what tricks you off and start adapting accordingly. You will take a better approach to temptation and other attractions. Naturally, temptation does not entirely vanish, but you are no longer unprepared to deal with those circumstances. The art of manipulating people to do stupid things. I believe that the only word we mean when we say manipulate is the word trick. This isn't your fault as other people believe. Some people can connect manipulation to conversational hypnosis and NLP because it can be used to easily hypnotize someone. So, what are manipulations and how can people be manipulated? Manipulation will enable us to tap into the mind and plans of people in a powerful proposal to change their way of thinking. Once it has changed, they will automatically be lured and influenced as we wanted them to act or speak. If you are stuck trying to get your fellow man back or have done your hardest to please your boss but it has not worked, I have wonderful news for you. In this chapter, I will reveal a secret of how to correctly manipulate people. Let's begin. NLP Anchoring Technique is an NLP strategy used to select someone's mind looking for a particular positive occurrence and restore the positive feelings associated with the incident in the present state of affairs. In other words, we're trying to restore a person's past emotions to the present situation so we can manipulate him or her easily. I know this deception could sound Greek to you, and I will give you an example. Typically, you would ask a person to think about and recall a good experience they liked. Let's say that this is her wedding day in this scenario. Tell her to recall and relive her marriage day. Let her remember all the wonderful moments she had that day. Since she voiced her nice experience, we need to equate it with a gesture. This motion may be a touch on your shoulder or a simple hand lift. How is a movement going to affect her? Let me explain. You equate the movement with the nice experience. Her mind will start to link her experience to your action sooner and gradually. You are simply serving as an opportunity for her subconscious to remember her experience. Guess what is this plan going to do to her? Every time you repeat the gesture to her, her mind will automatically recall her positive feelings on the day of her wedding and put her in a positive mood. That technique will make her feel comfortable and more open to hearing what you say easily. In other words, it's easy to learn how to manipulate people to say yes. In reality, NLP, hypnosis, persuasion, and mind control are closely related to each other for your knowledge. This protects both your mind and the people around you and guides it in a way that we think we like. Manipulation is non-ethical, but we must learn how to secretly manipulate people and control their actions in this world of dogs and children. Now, I'm not suggesting you should go out and manipulate anyone you meet on the street. Use these methods for your own good. You can sometimes use these techniques to achieve positive results. That said, we will see how manipulation is subtly affected. Whilst a step-by-step plan cannot be given since every case is special, there are ways to incorporate such ideas. In particular, there are 3 things you need to learn to succeed in getting what you want. Next, when you want to manipulate others, you will need to inject a powerful emotion. It may be covetousness, anxiety, desire, or some other strong emotion. When you don't, people can begin to think clearly and the chances of success are small. The hot buttons of the person you are trying to influence are also something you need to know. If you look at the individual closely, you know what their hot button is. It may be a pet, a hobby, or a strong feeling for a subject. Finally, you must be aware of the techniques of social engineering. This is used a lot by hackers to access highly secure systems. For example, if a uniformed police officer asks you to move away from a spot, are you going to check to see if he is a cop? We are conditioned to respond to certain people in a certain way. There are many other social factors you can use to your advantage. Now that you know the basic rules, you can begin to observe people and to evaluate and learn from certain situations. How to deal with manipulative people. People seek to convince and influence you to do things and you don't even know if they are professional. If you embrace these behaviors, you will learn how to handle people and give the impression that it is appropriate for you. You must first learn who these people are and why they do what they do. Check for signals if you're sure you wouldn't usually do it. Are you sending signals that what they do is alright because you accept their behavior? Your response to the people is what gives them the idea of what they will or won't do. Now that you know how to deal with the manipulative people in your life, it can be difficult to deal with dishonest people because you don't want to drive someone you really care for out of your life. When someone wants you to do something you don't want to do, you have to tell them what they are doing. Patterns form in your relationships with people that are difficult to break, but you must be ready to change the way you react and what you can do. Be transparent to the individual that your actions will continue no matter how things change. You can only control your actions that you can't change. People change only because they want to change, so you will not have to stay unhappy. If you are facing the individual and they haven't changed how they behave with you, what will you do? Well, you must decide what you can accept, and that depends very much on your relationship with the individual. You will respond differently if they are a big part of your life versus a casual acquaintance. You may just want to distance yourself from them if they're not important in your life. This is harder, if not impossible, for you to simply erase your family or partner from your life. You are also in charge of how much you can afford to be manipulated. You just have to stop responding in the way you expect when they try to manipulate you. The answer you get when you stop responding as they assume is that you should try to persuade yourself that you have the question, not them. You must stand firm and believe in your instincts to be true to yourself. Often you read something and it can change your life. Don't waste another boring day. You can forever change your life. Don't be robbed one more day of your love, joy, and happiness. Chances are that we all have faced a master manipulator unconsciously. Many took the job, yet the latter just won't read it. A genuinely competent bully is possibly a master manipulator. Perhaps a key indication is that even though we are deceived, we are in doubt to think, after all, that they are really that evil. Their covert and destructive behaviors are concealed by the selective charm and psychodrama intuitions which they use to remove key influencers from their influence. You will look very noble. Why are you doing this work? The bully distorts human relationships, and in this way, he gets away with everything he does without thinking. While holding these unrelated and by not looking at others, he will handle them with little regard. It's all business, is their compelling mantra. They then choose negative personality characteristics, which are easy targets for the bully. We also have negative personality attributes. They are easy to select. The bully is the core of his world, his complete social climate, relying on his image alone and his selective disregard of reality. Social is a wonderful term. It's a game always. The psychological distribution they use is deception. The underlying person is a classic narcissist. When we do something to spoil the picture, the bully itself raises the strength of the fight. The master manipulator strongly protects their image. This person only cares for others to the extent that they can help achieve their goals. Consequently, regard is highly conditional and trust, if it exists, is at best weak and unstable. The bully is monitored. It is not about friendship in his world. It's all about possession. So how do we fight it? We remain psychologically conscious as we brace for confrontational possibilities. We are not afraid, only ready to wait for the rough and relentless war if it comes. We are ready for war in our minds and hearts, not to fight, but to affirm ourselves peacefully by not being wrapped in their webs. This approach exaggerates the potential. Interestingly, we feel more comfortable. It is because we're happily shocked, expecting the worst, that things don't work that way. We seek to hold our emotions under check, knowing that life's business is just that, a plain and easy business without much need for losing control. The compassionate approach to life is a gift by itself. We enjoy peace free of charge. When people push us, we try not to react. Push me to speed up and I maintain my speed. We should also learn to joke, not to take life too seriously. How are we losing too much sleep and thinking about life's fairly small problems? Most of all, we believe in ourselves that in the eyes of God, we are as worthy as we are. As they do, we deserve respect. Happiness is never manipulating others. Good people never feel the need to manipulate people, not in either their personal and business lives. You love yourself while you live in happiness. You share this love with others as you love yourself. You're reaping what you're sowing. When you express affection, you will earn affection in business and personal happiness, kisses, etc. Interestingly enough, many businesses, including big corporations, are nowadays out of business. The proliferation in books teaching persuasion and manipulation, hypnotic sales, and mind control is also important. Happy individuals prefer to work with others both in their company and in personal life. You know that there are plenty of customers for everyone and those who try to convince the competition to smash and get a leg up on the market. How do you think so many people are so attached to mobile phones? You fear your rivals will leap on you if you are out of touch with your client base or office for a long time. Is that the way we want to live? Certainly an unhealthy way that could end with a person with a heart attack in the hospital. Manipulation is not limited to industry. People do it in their personal lives every day. Psychologists forgive them for suggesting that in their early childhood something happened that forced them to manipulate others to survive. Good, and then that worked for them and allowed them to grow up. Why do you manipulate someone as an adult to get what you want? Sadly, the response is very sweet. Those who claim to be the most vulnerable have the most control over others. We get people to do something for ourselves, but why bother if you can get someone else to do something for you? Yeah, but what happens when we are not too young and the guys don't flock to your beck and call and the ladies don't want to mother you anymore? Manipulating anyone rarely serves anybody's highest interest, neither would it ever be able to stay. Be careful how you handle your relationships. Do not let anyone feel like you have to look after them. You and the person apparently in need are hurt by being a rescuer. Honor and support these people by encouraging them to take care of themselves. Chapter 2. Standing up for yourself to overcome dark psychology and manipulation. If you're full of self-doubt, then you need to know how to fight for yourself. What is worse, even though it is against your will, you can easily be influenced by others. You have to fight for your rights. Be proud of who you are. Stand up for yourself. Don't allow fear to hold you off. When you continue to live in a cynical world, the beauty of life will never be seen. To live means to take chances and to go outside of your comfort zone. The universe is too large to be controlled by one human. This is what you have to do. You know you have rights. You must be mindful that your rights have been trampled on when you negotiate with a dishonest individual. Remember that, particularly if you are not valued as a human, you have the right to defend yourself. Manipulators will strip you of your rights to rule over you. it's only you who has the right to control your own life. Don't blame yourself. Everyone has weaknesses, and it is up to you to overcome them. If we can overcome weaknesses, it is how we get better as an individual. Never believe that you are the problem. What is wrong is when you let the individual manipulate you continuously. Just learn how to say no. We all have different principles governing our lives, which is why respect for individual differences must be respected. Be steadfast in making your decision. Note that saying no simply admits what you feel, and you have the absolute privilege to do so. Get on the floor. Do not show your weaknesses and show them to be in power. Take charge, live in freedom for once in your life, and liberate yourself from the restraints of fear. But how can you improve the condition if you don't put yourself up to the task? If you want to do something, take this next step. The answer is something you have to win. The moment you fail to acknowledge your rights as a human, that is when you lose your personality. Choices in the zone or manipulation. I'm on a journey of autonomy. The choices I have made, whether pride or powerlessness, and I am the way I am today because of the choices and decisions I have made in my life. It is important to observe the decisions taken in our lives to determine which ones truly empower us. If it's about choices, why should I decide? Why would you? We and they continually reach the mind, aware, preconscious, subconscious, just to list 3 layers. You get influenced by what your mind perceives and become self-empowered by reading this short book. Awareness, Rational Pension Processes. I felt I chose one time because of well-designed logical thinking. It looked like it would be enjoyable. It seemed enticing. The activity might do something for me. It would benefit me, and often because of a well-structured logical process, I learned to do logical processes at college. I did several things. Logic is something I care about, and I never use it in action. I never thought about what I was doing, something that served me well. I have always noticed my hindsight to be more accurate than my foresight, and I know that my rational mind is there even if not used. I'm sorry I never planned to do anything constructive, at least. How rational you are. Better feeling and automated workflow. How do I do things and why do you do them? You have great thoughts that allow us to make decisions quickly without much thinking, so I'm directed by force and use my gut feelings many times. One personal example is when we drive home on a winding mountain path. It was dark, clear, and as usual, I rounded a curve. I went around it too hard to find elk in the way. I was going about 70, hit the brakes, and slowed down, but it was too late for me to pause or think, so I went through the little herd without thinking. Somehow I saw the rear hoof of one of the elks strike the right side of the bumper from the corner of my eye. I stopped the car away from the elk, turned around, looked at my 2 friends in the back seat, and they were both very quiet. One said, "That was exciting," and my wife had slid as quickly down the seat as possible. We went off on the road again, and I found a scuff mark on the bumper the next day. This is an example of my intuitive or non-conscious thoughts or events that have proven fantastic and true. The occurrences happen too suddenly for the conscious mind to act. This kind of thinking or choice cannot be taught, but can be practiced and studied because something like quantum physics is gone as soon as you have a conscious thought. An occurrence or behavior changes as it is perceived. Thoughts are energy, which is a representation of being in place. The subconscious takes on commands or emotions, makes decisions or choices, and typically is right when it is selected by the subconscious mind. It's all about trusting yourself in every level of your mind. Subliminal motivation. Messages and or images delivered more rapidly or in ways that the conscious mind cannot perceive are also powerful methods of subliminal condition. I started watching television 10 years ago mostly because of my understanding of subliminal persuasion strategies and because it is a mental wasteland. I restrict my access to commercial ads and have built filters that protect me from subliminal message encouragement. It is important to be conscious that certain organizations or companies often use subliminal tactics, and this awareness is a first step in defending themselves from them. Big Repeat is a low technology way to use subliminal persuasion. A further low-tech method of subliminal persuasion or coercion is to have a trusted person such as a physician who gives a message because the messenger most of the time is more relevant than the message. In contrast to our other thought patterns, the conscious is sluggish and insufficient, and here we just think about the subconscious. The subconscious perceives everything very quickly in its environment. In my classroom, my students could see messages that blinked around 1.7 seconds on a computer, and they acted on those messages. The speed and accuracy of the subconscious are difficult to grasp. It is a bit like the old joke. There, would you like to see it again when the first time you didn't see it? The subconscious saw it, interpreted it, recalled it, changed you correctly, and it could have been almost anything. It is important to know a lot about subliminal motivation at this point in the evolution of our country. So, why do I make the choices I make and why do you? If a person or community wants to understand, teach, persuade, and manipulate, then subliminal strategies work well. Yes, we are being manipulated, and you can see your choice as an observer if this information is new to you. Chapter 3. Are you vulnerable to manipulation and deception? I once dated this girl who broke up with me. I foolishly figured I could talk her out of it, hoping that you can only finish the conversation. However, the other person tried to appeal to your rational side. You know how incredibly useless it is. If you ever had to break up with someone, you know a rational reason would never convince you otherwise. If you decide you want it to stop, your mind won't change much. On a rational basis, at least, it's sort of like eating a cheeseburger rather than celery. Once you're up to mind, there isn't a lot of logic. The fact is that very little can affect us scientifically. Yeah, if you're in the middle of a math test or you try to pick the right method to construct a birdhouse, the best option is conscious logic. Yet we are sentimental beings most of the times. This is pretty well most of the time. These are all great emotional experiences, relationships, relaxing moments, delicious food, good movies, and stories in which we can lose ourselves, even like their opposites are. After all, who wants to go through life with the expense and profit of each decision coldly calculated? That'd be too boring. You will find that they all can almost be felt when you read these words and can think back on some of the most beautiful moments of your life. Yet these feelings can also be used against us. Fear and worry are often used by marketers to encourage us to do something. Promises of status, sexual attraction, and social recognition may thus be made. Advertisers count on us to live without understanding what we want. The buttons are much easier to press in this way. As we don't knowingly choose what we want, we rely on our factory programming, where we search for these basics such as meat, shelter, fellowship, sexual fulfillment, while they skip the basics such as danger, hunger, embarrassment, and loss of social status. Worse, most of these strike us when we least expect them. We enjoy our favorite TV series as we relax on the couch. Ever wonder why don't we even need as much garbage as we buy? There are of course two ways to avoid that. One is to choose what you want consciously. It's much harder to be manipulated in this way. There are two things to consider what our common human causes are so that nobody will resist your will. Are you open to subconscious manipulation? It's pretty easy to hack these days without realizing it. And when I say these days, I mean recently, in the last few decades since the commercial explosion. I don't know how true they are, but there are all kinds of reports by government psychologists, some supposedly affiliated with Freud himself, who produced these large-scale programs. Those systems were then used by advertisers to get us to buy things we don't need, as Tyler Duran of the Battle Club put it. I'm sure you know the hypnosis force, right? Who's involved? What is involved? You reach a comfortable state and your mind is bombarded with ideas to shape your belief in a happier and more imaginative life. It is perfect if you know the ideas or if you had a long conversation with your hypnotist so that he or she takes your best interests into account. But what if those ideas don't depend on your interests? Is it even feasible? This has certainly been used since the 1950s. I'm not speaking of any super secret MK Ultra program. I'm speaking of your simple TV running mill ads. Your home, plopped on the sofa in close connection to your TV set at the heart of your favorite series. You get hit with ads every 20 minutes when you're deep in trances and open to suggestions. It occurs many times a day to all of us. Then we fill our carts with garbage like programmed zombies when we shop. So, what are we supposed to do? Avoid watching TV and then continue reading books? In a story about a bunch of obviously fake characters, I like to lose myself. I'm sure I do that too. It's human nature. How do we stand up for ourselves? Simple. The best security is a good crime. The explanation of why ads and marketing work so well is that most of us have no idea what we do in life. Few of us ever take time to sit down and prepare our lives, however much more than average is accomplished. We struggle through it and leave our minds open to someone with the best publicity. Of course, you're going to have a subconscious security shield against all commercial clowns on TV as you sit down, plan your life, and are making it. The more you participate in your own life, the less power the other forces will have over you. The power of conversational hypnosis to read people. Do you know why there is so much debate about conversational hypnosis? Because you can easily hypnotize people with this strategy and your subjects won't even get a hint of it. Looks fine, doesn't it? Sounds fantastic. How does conversational hypnosis help to read people? Simply put, it means dimensioning people by studying their body language. You have to perceive consciously or unconsciously the nonverbal signals people receive. So then you need to accurately decide who these individuals are, what they think, or how their inner world is without clearly articulating your silent acts. You can read and understand people other than by studying body language, by keeping a silent eye on their changes in psychology. Top and clever performers can falsify or control or change their body language, but you cannot falsify or control the psychology because our unconscious mind controls our psychology. When you can read and judge people, you can understand or guess if people try to cheat you or not, if you disconnect or not. You should look at conversational hypnosis as a detector of human deception. The strength of conversational hypnosis. You can read and judge people by watching their eye movements, whether they're red or not, changes in breath habits, the blinking rate, the pupil relationship, etc. You should also research people's eyes and postures. Do you know, by studying the signs and your body language, you can take clues and judge others, while others will not judge the same person completely the same? Things can reach such proportions that people may even believe they have intellectual skills. You just need to take full advantage of all the powers of chat hypnosis. The good news is that anyone with the right training can easily learn this ability. If you know how to read people, then at the right time, you can react with the right influences and the opportunities are endless. Through hypnosis, the hypnotist creates a special mental condition in a human being or an animal, a hypnotic state. During this state, the hypnotist can monitor and influence the hypnotized person's emotions, actions, and mental status. The hypnotist will then use his control for the good of the person under hypnosis. For his own sake, for the good of some part, he cooperates or he can only do harm. Hypnotic techniques are widely used by authorities as social instruments to control individuals and large audiences, but often without being referred to as hypnosis. Hypnotic mind features. A hypnotic state, both as a whole and in terms of individual properties, may be high or weak. A classical and powerful hypnotic mind has the following characteristics. Every person is focused in a specific direction and to the object, individual, or voice in the direction. The person may focus intensively on the object of attention since all his mental capacity is focused in this way. Things that a person sees or hears in this particular direction involve the person's mind so that his attention remains. Sensorial information about other objects or things in the environment is significantly reduced or blocked. A hypnotized person is mentally relaxed and often feels comfortable in other respects. The hypnotized recipient easily perceives information sent out of the focus and is easily registered in the mind, including something said or some sort of order issued. Rational thinking and logical knowledge checks are stopped so that everything passed into memory is kept valid, and any instructions issued are automatically obeyed. Where a hypnotic state is known. There are many methods of hypnotic induction, but all contain elements that occur in specific sequence. The hypnotic state is usually induced in the following way. The atmosphere is designed to be relaxed and few complicated or confusing knowledge moves. The hypnotist will make the person relax mentally and physically and generally attract his attention as a preliminary step. He does this with a monotone voice, with gentle, friendly, and monotonous music or other creative methods. The hypnotizer shows an object that is easily perceived distinctly. The classic example is a watch hanging in a chain, but it can also be a hypnotist's hand or a technological tool like a TV monitor. The hypnotizer performs a simple receptive action with the object as well as using informal conversation with the subject. In each case, the hypnotizer acts in such a way that the person is rewarded for paying attention to his actions and fixing his focus. To achieve this, the hypnotist tries to use his knowledge about the recipient. Sometime later, the individual enters a state with his entire concentration concentrated on the object and the hypnotic voice. The hypnotist then finishes his operation with the object, but he continues to talk in an organized and predetermined way. Now the hypnotist's voice is the main focus. The hypnotized person is often commanded to relax, feel warm, and imagine a pleasant picture or other pleasant imaginations. During this induction cycle, these commands can be given many times. The user is finally in a hypnotic condition. The hypnotist then uses his condition to draw the person's attention to particular things or emotions to create mental manipulations. Hypnosis practical purposes. When the individual is in a hypnotic state, for various reasons, both good and bad, the hypnotist may use the basic properties of that state. The receiver may make things sound, taste, or hear, and can even see things not true and sometimes contradictory to what his senses record. He can calm him even more than he is in the simple hypnotic state. The individual can be instructed to do any job. If the mission runs counter to the recipient's most fundamental moral code or values, it often becomes difficult to make the individual obey. He may transfer real information or at least information which the hypnotist considers valid on to the recipient to promote the study process. He may mislead the recipient to obtain an unfair benefit, gain power, or simply harm with false information. He can relieve disease symptoms to make a patient's life easier, especially symptoms that are heavily linked to mental processes. He may motivate the recipient for other activities, for example, exercise encouragement, lifestyle changes, or avoidance of smoking or drinking. This can activate a patient's immune system and healing processes to contribute to disease therapy. He may exercise a person's leadership or a person's leadership with whom he cooperates, such as business leaders or political leaders. After performing the recipient's intended manipulations, the hypnotist breaks the hypnotic state. He does so by separating his actions simply and rearranging the climate. He may command that the hypnosis is broken and that the receiver awakes upon a particular signal and then gives the signal distinctly. Until breaking the hypnosis, however, instructions can be provided to retain the effects of the hypnosis. Hypnosis use in socialism. Hypnosis has a long history of psychologists and psychiatrists as a therapeutic tool. The popularity has changed occasionally. Nicotine is also used to briefly calm, alleviate discomfort, and change emotions. That influence may then be used to promote certain forms of physical and psychological treatment. Another popular application is lifestyle modification motivation, especially stopping drug use, drinking excessively, or smoking. Different sports clubs also employ skilled trainers to increase encouragement and to overcome psychological blockages that hinder performance. In many societies, the professional use of hypnosis is governed by law, and people who hypnotize usually require education in healthcare and special education in the use of hypnosis. Hypnosis is not an uncommon occurrence. It happens every day in every field of society, and the person who is hypnotized most frequently doesn't know what he does, and the client doesn't know that he is hypnotized. Teachers, coaches, and leaders known for their good results usually get the results of behavior that leads to a hypnotic state in his audience and uses that state to effectively convey information and motivation. Successful political figures or political deceivers prefer to use hypnotic tactics to manipulate an audience of individuals such as Hitler, Lenin, Stalin, Churchill, and Roosevelt as impressive historical examples in a tailored way for themselves and their movements. Global or international religious mass movements are typically routinely organized by religious preachers who use hypnosis. The hypnotic methods employed by popular members of authoritarian political and religious mass movements have also evolved for a long time within or connected to their organization. The methods then became standard instruments within these communities. The strategies are routinely passed on to new leaders during their preparation and also secretly to the organization's members. Every time an exceptionally talented leader wants to take absolute charge of the religious or political society in which he belongs and turn his culture into a mass movement. The proponents of these social movements are undoubtedly well aware that they regularly hypnotize vast numbers of people, but they seldom use the same language as they trained psychologists regarding their techniques. Covert hypnosis to manipulate subconscious minds. Covert hypnosis is used to control the subconscious minds of others to make them do what they want them to do. In our unconscious minds are our emotions, opinions, and ambitions. So, you have to have a profound connection with him or her to manipulate a person and then use covert hypnosis techniques to affect his or her subconscious mind. The use of the vulnerabilities of an individual will help to manipulate them. So, if the person likes to hear music, turn the radio on. Be mindful of the sound, though, and make sure it's right so that it doesn't interrupt you. Speaking in a gentle and calming tone, too. Do not be monotonous because that person's going to get bored. Speak about their interest material. It can be music, food, plays, or hobbies in any subject. Avoid dull things such as jobs or homes. I don't believe they're going to want to hear how much you hate your boss or mom. Don't fear laughing at the right time. Just a soft chuckle is going to do. Your main aim is to put them in a relaxing mode, and once they seem to relax and cool, you will begin to let your thoughts be what you want them to be. But make it slow and easy, as it should not be done harshly or carelessly. Remember, too, to be polite and kind. You must make it seem natural, as if you persuade them, but don't let them realize that you slowly control them. You use embedded commands and language patterns to address your subjects with them in a regular conversation, and your subjects carry the messages into their subconscious minds. They're going to do what you want because they felt these were their own decisions. You can naturally learn how to control people by using methods of covert hypnosis. Many people have used this basic approach and done what they want in life. Manipulating the mind-body relationships to achieve behavioral change. The relation between the mind and the body is an old enigma that takes human thought and philosophy over generations. There are several attitudes towards understanding, and in particular, this connection is manipulated. There is a mystical approach to spiritual or religious experiences, such as yoga or even Kabbalistic meditation. Yogic science and philosophy claim that a person is just a fragment of a vast world, and when this person learns to communion with his vastness, he or she is linked to something greater than himself or herself. This connection or tapping into something bigger helps you to take the true path to happiness. The target of the yogis is the whole of the mind. Yoga is not a form of meditation or a religion, which many people wrongly believe. Meditation is just a part of the whole cycle of getting oneself into the spiritual realm. Yoga is based on the link between the mind and body. Three aspects maintain this balance of mind and body: holdings, asanas, breathing correctly, pranayama, meditative practices. Mind and body derive inspiration and encouragement for the combined asanas, breathing, and meditation practices. Relaxation is one of the postures of the body which compromises pranayama and is necessary for meditation. Driven imagery is a mechanism in which the brain's front lobe controls and creates a mental state that stimulates the transition process or the life following changes. Combined with self-hypnosis, it allows our subconscious to make constructive suggestions. Guided imaging sometimes uses relaxation in its practice and sometimes does not depend on an instructor's approach. The method of self-hypnosis decreases resistance to change and selective thought is made more successful. Self-hypnosis always begins by relaxing as a way of penetrating the subconscious and creating a suggestive state of mind. Hypnosis and self-hypnosis function well as the body answers commands from the mind like the driver is answered by a vehicle. You have power over the body when you consider constructive proposals. During hypnosis, positive suggestions are given, and since the body is dominated by the subconscious, it seeks survival and embraces positive suggestions that are good for it. The goal of yoga is not behavioral change such as quitting smoking or weight loss. This can happen as a result of the mental transition. Controlled visualization and self-hypnosis use parts of yoga to create a state of mind that facilitates behavioral changes. Some psychologists tend to explain behavior without the subconscious concept. This doesn't even matter in reality. This is a strictly theoretical problem. When applying the basic strategies, you are on the road to improving your life. Yoga can improve the experience of self-hypnosis by providing readiness for self-hypnosis. Directed imaging can allow the self-hypnosis by outweighing the visualization capacity. Chapter 4. How to Read People. Getting straight into the merits of other people's minds and ethical problems, it can easily be ignored as it's not a radical concept. In a way, that is also true because of the extremely competitive and unhappy conditions in all regions. Indeed, reading people's minds offers many advantages. This is always possible, but methods must be constantly practiced so that the assumptions are almost flawless. Some of the methods are discussed here. It is understood that by studying a person's body language and eye movements, you will understand what the individual thinks. Reading the body language signals and eye movements is a major skill, and you can do a lot for it when it is mastered. Many people naturally seem to have this ability, but many of us don't pay attention to signs from other people. If you want to develop this expertise, you will begin to pay more attention to these aspects. One smart way to read people's minds is to study their eye movements. Experts have discovered that If someone looks up and down to the left, they seek to create an image. When a person looks up and right, it can be seen that he or she is trying to remember a specific picture. Another point is that other people who are anxious or tell lies do not explicitly look into your eyes, and then if the person is nervous, you can't expect the person to look at you directly. Confident people, on the other hand, retain their eye contact for a longer time. The same is true of lovers. By also watching the facial expressions, you can see what is happening in people's minds. If someone is trying to get close to you, as they step closer to you, they will respond positively. You will sit where you are or try to get a little closer. When they don't like meeting them, they will either retreat or leave the scene. When the person agrees with you during a discussion, the knees are pointing towards you. On the other hand, if they turn your knees down, they may infer that something you are saying is not reasonable. Nervous or restless people likewise tend to shift their weight or lift their feet. When you see a person sitting who crosses his or her legs, you can easily see that he or she is a simple person. The head roll always lets you decide what people think. Tilted heads show compassion for you. A tilted head with a smile on the face reveals him or her to be a friendly person or even a form of flirtation. Unless the person lowers his head when talking, as then he or she is trying to conceal something. Some people are going to try to replicate your behavior. It shows they're interested in you and want to build a friendship with you. You can make a couple of changes to your actions to test this, and if they continue to mimic those changes, you can be sure they're interested in you. You should also observe arm gestures to read someone's mind. When the individual folds or crosses his arm over the chest, he is attempting to shield himself against influences of others. When these crossed arms, they hold their feet wider, these people demonstrate their resilience. When you keep your hands on your hips, you may say that you are getting irritated. By crossing their arms, they show that they are not unwilling to talk. The dimension of reading others does not bother you. Many will learn that if you are overzealous, you want to figure out what they are thinking or attempt to decipher it. You're going to be a little static. Your relationship with people can be impaired. Therefore, when attempting to understand people, you should take a subtle approach. How to read people's minds for real. Despite this era of technology, few people know how to read people's minds. We rely so much on mobile devices that we have lost contact with much of our natural communication skills. There are many ways to read people's minds. We just need to watch for clear signals. Read the following instructions. Comments. Be mindful of the surroundings and people around. It is one of the simple strategies for reading people's minds. See how they respond to other circumstances. Take advantage of your own instincts here. Have you ever had the feeling that you know what the other person is doing and you know that you cannot shake it off? That's your observation strength. Body language. Another powerful way to read people's minds is to know their body language. Some people are slow, and one of the most common explanations is that something is vulnerable. You may be anxious about your weight, personality, or appearance. The explanation could also be that the situation is unpleasant. Body language must be learned regularly to learn how to read people's minds. One way to tell you that something is uncomfortable is that they have crossed their arms. It is also a warning that they don't want to talk or have a discussion right now. You may tell that if a person goes straight, he or she is comfortable and not sluggish. We talk with a strong, loud voice. We do have just a moist and welcoming spirit to open up. You feel relaxed. Facilitative speech. Observing the facial expression of another human is definitely what we do every day. We can already tell when the person lies, plays, fools, or is serious by his face. You probably recall a time when you shared a love of your favorite band, show, or film by saying it's the coolest thing and your friend just rolled her eyes. You can tell your friend has the opposite view. What about asking a female friend if she likes a particular guy? You can tell me, I'm sure, that she likes him if she is laughing, blushing, or if she answers your question. The look or expression on a person's face may be a clear indicator when you know how to read their mind. When you want to know how to read people's minds, keep those tips in your head. It'll also help you do what you need to do when the opportunity comes. How to read others like a book. In this chapter, you'll find out how to read others like a book so you can do far more with others. You can influence, convince, and even control them if you understand what is happening within them. The way you can do this is by learning to understand those patterns of personality and how you recognize your inner experience. For example, you can see if anyone can handle pressure well and can keep his calm even in stressful situations. There are three main ways people respond to stress: mental, pick, or think. Emotional people are those who throw themselves into those emotions and can do nothing about them. Individuals prefer to encounter the emotions at first, but then try to get away from them and function logically. Then others do not respond emotionally. They just respond rationally, objectively, and instantly think about things. One way you can do that is to simply ask them about their job situation. Emotional people can also restore the experience to a certain degree. They will hear their feelings in their tone of voice. You can see how their facial discomfort, body position, or movements will change. You can first see this for people of choice, but instead they return to neutrality, and thinkers are not going to go through any feelings and will just tell the truth. If you read this now, it may seem as if thinkers are the best kind, but that depends on the kind of situation. For starters, many of the best cooks in the world seem to be emotional people, and it's no accident because they need to feel, sense, and experience things to be successful in their work. A surgeon should not be a highly emotional person, but be a conscientious person. When consulting jobs or roles that require interpersonal skills, choosers are usually the best, since they can react emotionally to the concern of another person, but they can still see the rational side therefore. If, for example, you're in a difficult place, you could comfort an anxious person by asking, "Can you imagine how we'll feel about this situation 2 years from now when we look back on all this?" This allows them to separate themselves from the situation. Depending on the type of person with whom you communicate, various methods work best. Use emotional words when you want to inspire emotional people that make them excited by using terms such as wild, intense, or extraordinary. For choosers, you should use phrases like, "This is not only exciting and fun, it also has a great deal of meaning." Use members speak of clear thinking and of the cold reality. As you can see, you need some practice to learn how to read people like a book, but once you know how to do that, you can quickly use this ability to influence others. secret ways to read people's thoughts. We've reached the point where we can read people's mind. Nowadays, there are many ways to learn that someone else is thinking. Such methods range from simple to analytical. If you want to know how people's thoughts can be decrypted, check out some of these tips below. Some of the best ways to read people's minds are by speaking their words. Most people don't seem to learn how to use it properly as clearly as this technique would seem useful. Nonetheless, I am going to urge you to read some of the main movements of your body. Note the direction in which your knees point when you speak to a person. If they have pointed their knees towards you, you know that the other person is interested in you and approves. On the other side, if they are turning away from you, you can think of a way to attract their attention. The hand movement. Here is how to read people's mind with your eyes. If a person tries to make an image from nothing, he probably looks up and down to the left. In the meantime, someone who tries to remember a certain image might look up and down. Once you decide, don't let it become the last straw as strong as this approach is. CEO of the company. Only incremental progress has been made on a more practical basis to explain how people can read minds. Kendrick and his fellow scientists found a way to evaluate a person's image without even seeing the photos. The team was able to create a Scientific American, a computer model that could accurately explain a person's brain activity. The model could encounter the lightness and angle the person encountered when looking at the image and thus could calculate the image by measuring its luminosity and angle when a series of images was presented in the model. For example, the model is not always 100% accurate because other images have the same luminosity and angle. Learning to read people's minds can be seen in different ways. Although it is not easy to read people's minds and read the words of a thought bubble, we are halfway there at least. How to read people using their facial expressions. Many people believe they can dissimulate their feelings completely. Yet, except for a handful, all of our feelings are betrayed by our easiest characteristic, the face. The expressions typically give away emotions and other emotions as we look to their faces, which are shaped by about 60 facial muscles. Some scientists have researched them, including Paul Ekman of the University of California Medical School in San Francisco, and due to Dr. Ekman's investigations, and he found that only around 1 in 10 people can disguise their feelings convincingly as expressed in their facial expressions. His research suggests that people have universal expressions or movements which defy most cultural limits. For example, a smile will symbolize joy almost everywhere you go. The right expression will make the difference between unavailable, bad, and snobbery, as well as between looking relaxed, calm, and accommodating. So take note that the body offers certain signs that might not be communicated in their expressions. When you are in a spooky situation, for instance, and feel scared, you partially open your eyelids with the white eye over the iris, and there is tension on the lower lip. The eyebrows come back together and rise, which makes the forehead wrinkle. Your lips are normally rigid and closed. If you're glad, the signs are dimples running from your nose to your mouth's corners, raised mouths, and wrinkles under your lower eyelid or your eye's corners. Watching your emotions and managing them and influence how people view you and interact with you. The force of persuasion. Most scientists and experts claim it is very difficult to read people's minds and understand them by looking at them. You're right. You're never going to know that guy unless you talk a great deal to him, always go with him, and hang with him. It is really important to read people instantly in marketing and sales because you cannot reach just one person a day. You won't go anywhere. There is a powerful device that can help you read what you want quickly and immediately. The tool I mean is in you, and you just need to build it. It's not hard. This is the strength and the art of persuasion in you. Every one of us has a secret conviction. You also need to learn and know how to use it to understand people in particular. Reading people instantly isn't that simple, but you will learn how to read people instantly with the power of persuasion. Here you can practice this compelling technique. The power of persuasion will also help you get something out of the affluent, and then you can read it and appreciate it. There are various ways of reading people, but only this art of convincing people allows you to read them immediately. You can understand people by their body language, for example. You will only know if the person's body language concerns you. One form that can be read that is part of certain forces of persuasion are facial expressions and eye contact, so you can quickly draw them out. You can also learn a lot from the facial expression. The strategy of persuasion should help you find out what is in the word. Did they understand you? Do they trust you, or do they believe you? Your confidence and how you convince people should automatically address this situation. The secret tricks to reading people's thoughts. One of mankind's biggest mysteries is to discover the mystery of how people read their minds. If you could read the minds of the men, you could know what someone else is thinking exactly. The strength of mind-reading tricks and strategies lies in how you read the other person's actions and signals. Here are the hidden ways to decipher the feelings of people through their body language. If you know what a person is feeling, you have a powerful insight that can help you communicate in your favor. Body language is simple and fun to learn. Some of us don't do it consciously because we don't know what a brilliant reading practice is. Here are some things to see to get you started. When they meet you, they listen to you and pay attention, but they aren't concentrated on you if they are turned away. If they rock side by side, they are frustrated and they want to finish the conversation. A turn back is an indication that someone is purposely overlooked or avoided. If someone likes you, they are intimidated at a subconscious level and withdraw from you. If someone steps slowly towards you, they are interested in you or what you say. A common sign to point their knees or feet to you, which means they understand, so they match their stance to yours. When you continue to imitate the body language, this is an indication you initiate the conversation. Crossed arms are a symbol of defensive or contempt, even when the thumbs are straight and upwards so that they look distant yet welcoming. When their hands face you with open palms, they are open to what you're thinking. If the eyes look up to the left, they are trying not to make an image. This may be an indication that they made up what they are asking you. When their eyes turn up to the right, they are seeking to recall a specific image and access a particular memory. Those are just the normal directions. Some people, particularly the left-handed, have opposite eye movements, so it's important to provide a simple reading by pressuring them to recall something that you know happened. We will experience most of these things during our lives. Without being cautious, we can begin to feel when a person becomes defensive and then just note their closed body language. Having to pay attention to their emotions is a simple way to begin to grasp what others' body language tells you. In addition to sociopaths and great liars, disappointment is stressful. When the blood supply is disrupted, the vital organs are prioritized and separated from the limbs. If someone lies, they probably have cold hands. Such tension often makes the individual jump more in response to loud noises or other stupidity. But note, tension doesn't mean disappointment. Eye contact is not normal if we are lying, but it can be forced. If a person begins to make odd eye contact, they are usually doing something suspicious. The way a person thinks is reflected in the words and questions he or she uses. Someone who likes to talk about social situations and relationships is someone who focuses heavily on interpersonal relations and will react much better to interactions that involve these elements. Relationships are founded on feelings, and these individuals may be more affected by emotional rather than rational arguments. Through paying attention to all the signs that a person knows not given up, you seem to read their thoughts. These strategies can give you an understanding of what others think, and you can even impress yourself with your precision. Many people concentrate so much on what they are going to do next or what they expect from an experience that they just turn too little attention away from the other person. As we reflect on what the other person does, we gain a better understanding not just of what they do, but also of what they think. Chapter 5: Manipulating Beliefs, Motivations, and Behaviors with NLP. NLP discusses our feelings and asks us to carefully consider why these emotions arise. If we are furious, frustrated, glad, or sad, it may seem clear why we go ahead to try and solve this problem as much as possible. This problem is we often misread our emotional messages, ignore them, or cover up the true reasons for this. In neurolinguistic learning, motivation plays a significant role. This is the case that people go to fun things and avoid the unpleasant. But in this regard, we are somewhat selfish. Short-term effects will typically prevail in the long term. Everybody assumes, for example, that if they exercise, they will gradually feel better, be stronger, and have more strength. Yet there is not inherently any incentive because we do not experience any short-term gains and even have short-term pain and discomfort. On the other hand, we know that eating a candy bar would make us more obese and probably fatter in the future, but the short-term benefit is too tempting. Neurolinguistic programming takes our motivation seriously, and one of the key techniques is to learn how to manage motivation. NLP will help you concentrate on the long-term benefits of the intervention rather than on the immediate excitement of a short-term fix. Neurolinguistic programming suggests that as individuals, we start to create beliefs about the world we live in and that we use this confidence to guide our decisions and actions. Some of the time, this follows simple reasoning. For instance, fire is hot, don't put your hands in fire, but negative attitudes may also be built up. For example, don't ask anybody because you are always rejected. Such negative convictions may come from a single experience or incident in one's life that becomes very dominant in a person's mind. NLP's goal is to break these patterns by helping people to understand their actions, values, motives, and fears. Once you can see how flawed or detrimental your views are, NLP strategies can help to disrupt these destructive habits and substitute them with positive and beneficial behaviors. There is nothing better than to discover at the moment unexpectedly that you are manipulated. Manipulation in principle means a lot, and not all of this is bad necessarily. But if you get that feeling, it gives rise to a lot of self-discussion about the situation that could be counterproductive. It can lead to anxiety attacks at the end. Naturally, certain people in society fear coercion. You will once be the protagonist and have lost it forever. The abusers of life in particular are known to have a desire to manipulate. 1. This may be based on the deadly sin of arrogance in which alcoholics and other dependents suffer so much. Pride is also symptomatic of a loss of trust or a lack of confidence in another person. Such people are both able to feel and to be manipulated. If you are at a time of coercion, that means that you know beyond any doubt that it is occurring and that it is not an exaggeration of your imagination. You must either confront the person who is instigating it, just get out of the situation. When you are in a position where the person is nearby and you have no choice but to face the person, make sure you think about the situation and prepare for it before the case. Manipulators are wise and use remorse very efficiently. Be careful. Don't mess with abusive relationships and codependence. Challenge them. It can be of such relief if you get rid of a manipulator's clutches. Don't just do it because you want equality. Rather, do it as a response to injustice for the right reasons. The main reason someone tries to manipulate you is usually based on fear. They do it in a way that is deceptive and lacks accountability, and you or your actions are controlled in a submissive manner. How to avoid being manipulated by your friends. Being manipulated is like being a dumb pawn in another stupid game. Nothing is more rewarding than to know that you have been seen. People who manipulate often are extremely skillful in doing this, and when you get used as a marionette, you always say bitterly to yourself, "I should have known better." The worst part of this is, your friends are the ones who manipulate you the most. It is a rule. A person who manipulates always finds that he or she wants to be the ideal opposite. Perhaps a picture of Jason Voorhees falls into your mind when you think of a serial killer. Nevertheless, most serial killers appear as innocent as Betty White. The most promiscuous men are also the most naive of them. Men who are the most polite and lovable are also the cruelest in the end. Why are manipulators the complete opposite of who they claim to be? We know how to tap into one of our great weaknesses in civilization, idealization. We tend to idealize others. For example, when a man sees a very beautiful woman, he blinds himself to all of her flaws and starts to think she is a perfect angel. I'm sure women can tell when they find a really attractive guy. Those who manipulate know this on an unconscious basis. As you look for the dreadful dirtbags who may hurt you, your true threat lurks in front of you. I've heard rape statistics supporting this fact. The key to avoiding manipulation by others lies in stopping others from idealizing. Learn to differentiate between the good characteristics of individuals you project on them and those that actually exist. How to bring this into action in real life. It may sound very negative, but it isn't. I don't like nice men. I like people who are honest, direct, compassionate, and loving instead of liking lovely people. The thing is, you can be sweet without being one, and you can be nice and dishonest, fake and stubborn, etc. My disappointment is that I find more nice false people than true ones. Being sweet is also not a good way to calculate niceness for whatever cause. Nice people may be nice. We also have a secret agenda, which is dangerous for you. You can be extremely compassionate on the other hand and not sweet. Anyone who shows you tough love or someone who can be straight up is far more precious for you than someone who laughs and hates you when you are gone. Whenever I hear someone characterized as nice, adorable, or sweet, I'm a little skeptical what they might do it to mask the opposite. Search for people who act positive and negative alike, and you can be sure they don't want to conceal anything. When you recognize these problems from the outset, you can prevent fractured connections. Control mind manipulation perspective. There are subliminal triggers in a negotiation that encourage you to take one action over another. You understand the root of your inspiration to the point that you are aware of them. To the extent that you are unaware, the puppet called the opposite negotiator can manipulate you into an inviolable negotiating position. Mind control. Before you start negotiation, you have already won or lost to some degree. The truth is that your assumptions on your bargaining skills, those of the other negotiator, and your views on the result impregnate your mind and behavior in the negotiations. The power of your thinking relative to your negotiating counterpart is therefore emanated from you and seen during negotiations. It is very similar to indicating your intentions before they are projected into your actions. If you don't have a winning attitude, you may condemn your victory potential before it has a chance to be born. You will develop your thoughts through careful negotiation preparation, as in the compilation of relevant details and the approach you are going to use. Manipulation can be difficult to distinguish accurately. It is because what one person sees as coercion can be seen by another as helpful. However, the meaning that you give to coercion will decide the degree to which you engage or disengage during the negotiation. You must also recognize the meaning and importance that the other negotiator allocates to the term. If he thinks you are manipulating him at his expense, he may rail against you for something you do not feel is sure. When the root of his frustration is not known, it could make you harden, and negotiations could lead you to some sort of entanglement. Prospect. The way you interpret any situation depends on your viewpoint. Some negotiators will do whatever they can to succeed, others will not. What kind of talks are you against? The idea of doing what you need to win may be a fine line between winning and losing. As a consequence, decide what you are going to do to succeed and determine what the other negotiator feels you should do. If you are not able to do what is appropriate depending on the result you are hoping for, it will be better if you do not enter into negotiations and know when you are going to have talks and you're satisfied with what you've done, even though it's substantially less than what you expected. By deciding in advance your viewpoint and what you are going to do to get what you want, you put obstacles in your mind about how deeply you are willing to reach the abyss to win. If you can understand from the above, several factors will contribute to negotiations or break them down. To the degree to which you pay attention to the complexities that arise briefly, you should be aware of shifts in the negotiations. This way, you will keep the negotiations going towards the successful result you are seeking, and with the universe, everything is going to be perfect. Persuasion versus manipulation, which one are you applying? Many novice sales copywriters are mistaken for the art of persuasion versus manipulation when creating landing pages, sales letters, and emails to sell their products and services. Manipulation is the exertion of devious influence of your benefit by means such as lying and misleading, even if others are not willing to first give it to you. Manipulation is appealing to many men. This form of communication can be extremely efficient and strong, but dishonest, sleazy, and right down. Companies using this approach would be short-lived and would have a bad reputation. You won't earn brownie points by manipulating your prospects. The prospect will feel obligated to sell, and I promise that they will not be a faithful client for long. Some of these telephone solicitor schemes that threaten the elderly may be a perfect example of coercion. To convince the recipient to swallow their fear tactics and ultimatums from their last dollar or hold such a powerful conversation that pushes their recipient out of their confidential details. In the end, the person feels defeated and afraid not to do as he said. Conviction is the act of manipulating the mind by presenting arguments and a form of social control. Persuasion is meant to conquer the other individual, eliminating obstacles in order not to kill them. The process persuades your clients to change their beliefs and or conduct by moral or logical means rather than by force. Sadly, persuasion is both notoriously difficult and almost impossible to resist when well done. When using the persuasive strategy in your sales file, your prospects can give you trust and reputation. You let them make their assumption about your product or service by being truthful and helping them with a need or concern honestly. Moreover, people are likely to embrace your message without talking all the details into your account if you have certain characteristics that make you feel safe. Honesty? Everyone loves to be honest. This reveals your principles and beliefs and gives you credibility with your prospects who will keep doing business with you. Do not use misleading claims or falsehoods only to market your product when writing your file. Likability. People are easily persuaded by others they like to do things. Added to your sales piece, your personality or story. Let the future prospect know who you are. In the end, this creates trust. People want to do things that others see. Bring personal information into the flow of your copy before and after testimonials. This tells you that average Joe does so, why can't I? You don't want to manipulate your prospects, forcing them to buy your product or service, but it's all right to persuade them to make their own decisions and give them honest reasons and the benefits of why they should buy. Just make sure you use it to manipulate your targets in the right direction and for all the right reasons to convince them to take a particular step and motivate them to obtain the desired outcome or solve their problem. The power of NLP. You must have heard of research or the school of thinking called NLP if you have an interest in personal growth. While it has been around for several decades, the average person knows little about what it is, how it works, and the power it needs to stimulate positive changes in a person's life. This chapter will discuss NLP and analyze how it can create such important effects in human behavior and eventually achieve its objectives. What is NLP? NLP stands for the language programming of neuro. It is a scientific philosophy by the names of Richard Bandler and John Grinder in the 70s, who was a mathematician and a linguistic. The term was developed because neuro refers to the brain and linguistic refers to language analysis, while the programming refers to the capacity of our minds to produce the outcomes and behavior which we like. In certain words, the analysis of how language patterns can be used to configure our brains to produce such results is a problem for NLP. NLP is used individually for many purposes and among many styles. NLP is known by many predecessors and governments as an immensely powerful way to produce behavioral improvements such as phobia removal or addiction, improved efficiency, increased concentration, and productivity. Many NLP elements are particularly existing and generally cause the most radical results. NLP accepts that conduct is at all times the product of our emotional state. This is then characterized by changing this emotional state by successful inner contact and representation. This internal contact can take several forms, one of which is visual imagery, which is the most prevalent. NLP recognizes that any state in which we can feel and can be recreated by identifying the mental picture previously present. For example, you can create a feeling of happiness by manipulating the mental images you have in your life when you have felt the same feeling. This theory is especially strong through what is referred to as modeling in NLP. Modeling implies that in any situation, we can imitate the actions of any person by defining the state in which he or she creates the actions and modalities that surround it and construct it. Behavior, competence, and emotion of any sort are transmissible as though we can put it on a CD and play it whenever we want. NLP is an exciting and continually evolving science that includes several keys regarding action and human experience. Words have tremendous strength. Words may begin wars and tear relationships apart. Words will cure and bring healing as well. We recall well-known words from those that influenced our lives. Quotes that lasted longer than anyone who spoke to them. Words are effective devices. What about the words we use and how we feel to describe ourselves? The specific words we choose to describe a situation, whether consciously or unconsciously, create exactly what that situation means to us and how we feel. For example, if a situation emerges that you might at the first mark as devastating, if this deemed a bit deceitful, will there be a different, maybe less emotional intensity? Sure, certain things are catastrophic, but are we using similar words for things that are not? If you use words with less intensity, I would suggest that you, in yourself and others, evoke a less intense emotional response. Many of us deal with tension every day. Generally, the dispute has been resolved, discussed, or forgotten after some time has passed. Sometimes we even wonder why it seemed so overwhelming in the first place. We may say we are furious at the moment, and we will be furious at the strength of that term. What if we said that we were aggravated or irritated instead? These words promote less of an emotional or psychological reaction, and the meaning we attach to it shapes how we feel about anything. What if we just use words to guide the meaning we add to situations? Again, some things can well explain furious, but why not save the world? Nothing is catastrophic or retrospective. Very few items are currently. Many problems are a minor concern, not a big issue, but with the words major problem, we have the psychological response to the major problem tension. Consider how words are conveyed to you. If we disagree, I disagree and say, you're wrong or you're lying. There is a major difference. The latter would possibly adversely affect our relationship. When we label things, we tend to create emotions that go with them. How if we could broaden our emotional vocabulary to the emotional state we like with the words we choose? We can. This is another indication of our own life strength. Try to play the option of your word to see if your emotions can be manipulated by manipulating your words. Suggestions for using NLP to make practical changes. Many people have heard of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, although they have no idea what it is. NLP is many actions that argue that people can manipulate themselves by reprogramming their minds. The linguistic part of NLP is that the words we use have a lot to do with our life views. As you learn about NLP, you realize that you have the power to change something about yourself or your life that you don't like. These are some of the advantages that you can get from NLP. One practical part of neurolingual programming is the use of an anchoring tool. Anchoring simply means connecting a given mental state to an anchor, may be a word, symbol, object, song, or sensory stimulus. People usually have both affirmation and unconstructive anchors in which one thing is correlated over time. NLP makes this process aware so that we can benefit from it. For example, in a positive or resourceful, another common term of NLP, you can invent an anchor, such as tapping on your left middle finger's knuckle. After you have anchored, you can use it and re-examine the state of mind you want. This is a way to train yourself to manage your emotions and feel anyway. Neurolanguage programming works on the notion that everyone uses their senses differently. In general, the dominant meaning of people is either visually, seeing, auditory, hearing, or physical, touching. While everybody uses every meaning, most people tend to favor one over another. When you know this, you will first become more acquainted with yourself. Secondly, by knowing which of their senses they prefer, you can interact better with others. You can usually see this from the words people say. For example, a visual person usually says, "I see," to show that they understand something, while a listener is more apt to say, "I hear you." When you choose to change your life or things with neurolinguistic programming, you must be able to challenge and change your beliefs. Sadly, people never doubt their self-confidence as children and take their entire life with them. For example, you can think of yourself as someone with no musical talent because when you were a small child, a parent told you that. This childhood plant is still there as an adult, and the person has a natural aversion to always be interested in playing an instrument or learning music. The only way for the adult to ever learn how to play an instrument is if he actively questions that faith. Neurolinguistic programming seeks to do with people to persuade them that certain values that started as a child's values can be modified. It can be used in so many different areas of life. Neurolanguage programming is a practice that has been successful in thousands of people for over 3 decades. Because the methods and effects are based, new methodologies are continually found. The methods that we discussed here to NLP are only a few of the benefits about which you can learn more about this incredibly useful personal development method. Dark psychological strategies to get your ex back. We all face some troubling moments once in a while, and the most awful thing in life is when your loved one leaves you. People try to get their ex back with all sorts of things, but often they struggle. Dark psychological strategies can help you in a matter of time to get your ex under your spell. Several techniques are available to get your ex back, but should be used consistently to achieve good results. There are many ways to get your ex back over time, but some patience is needed. Seek not to desperately save your friendship and make every attempt to get your ex back. The grim psychological approaches I am exploring here are 1. Ask for your sense of curiosity. Curiosity is a major driver of all our maquillage. People will do what they want to satisfy their curiosity. 2. Wake up their belief in themselves. Self-interest is in us all a fantastic motivator. Many would go to the ends of the planet to reward themselves. Prepare a stupid evidence plan for your ex. A holistic strategy is only going to help you reach your goals. First of all, be emotionally and mentally prepared, and then continue your plan. Take time to approach your ex because it won't solve your problem. Be sure you take steps to get your ex back. Enthusiasm in the right way can only help you overcome the situation in which you stay. Systematically approach your ex with your prepared plan. You can also help your friends fix your dilemma, and they can help you stay and love you. Try to chat freely with your ex and try not to hide issues. The point-to-point debate can only help you solve the issue. Seek to donate what your ex would want to do at your meeting, and the chances of fixing the issue would increase. If you refer to your ex, be confident. Here are some things that you have to consider when you decide to make the next move. Conclusion. Through experiences and our consequent thought processes, different identities are created in parallel worlds. Working on separate premises means that we are largely unaware of our divided personalities until we face situations that require a will battle. Irony and difficulty are not to squelch all aspects that are harmful to us, but to understand that the very factors that need to be removed are the aspects of our lives that we seek to protect. When we try to align our spirits, the threat to ourselves is most evident, for they serve separate goals. One part of us is willing to live the experience of life to the fullest, while the other is battling to maintain a predetermined existence and way of living that is adverse to change. I call it the factor why not and who said versus the factor what is the point. Why not and who said ask our defense systems at every turn and angle, seeking to understand where we decide not to take chances, believe in something else, or try to analyze our interactive patterns critically. We dare not have any regrets because we may have to change. What's the point is more of a rule-making work where deviation from preset conditions is an abomination and tactical offense to self-sense. It is there to discourage and satiate existing conditions to new and varied experiences utilizing unchanging thoughts. Nevertheless, we dare not go ahead because we don't want to deal with pain. Since these different personalities reside within the same brain, the solution becomes an impasse in which what's better strategy selectively acquires peace of mind. What's the best approach can be misleading in nature, as the stronger of the two personalities determines and controls its existence. What's better might be a passive-aggressive interpretation of what the point is or unhardened or overly cautious implementation. In any case, the hypocrisy lies in our self-affirmation that we have a strong sense of identity and therefore function well within ourselves and with others. If that were the case, we could be gods by all means. Nevertheless, our human nature exposes these internal conflicts in different ways, and then our particular aim is our advance toward battling spirits within us. We work to strengthen and regulate what we can so that we can embrace what we can't. We ply wins and fails against ourselves in a never-ending game of cards, stacking our experiences as the cards handled diligently, placing our bets in our best interest. When discussed earlier, it is not our best interest to be compromising what is right, and profit should then become our focus area. Surviving and mitigating self-damage as much as possible is in our best interests. Adapting and developing against a growing background, which can be as varied or boring as we decide, is in our best interest. Both desires conflict with the personalities that have been designed to deal with each other, each end goal which is far apart and yet connected as independent-minded twins. Realizing that going forward in one way or the other entails a killing of sorts of one personality in favor of another leads to reflexes of struggle and flight, and the resultant paralysis of the soul in mutual agreement to just be and stay as it is. An impasse is the greatest enemy of time, and by ticking seconds with or without our movement, experiences unfolding stop being catalysts for change, but the enemy that must be subdued and conquered in our quest to protect ourselves. We are who we are, fit into a workable mold, a self-agreement to foster an identity that is acceptable to us in our varied roles so that we can somehow progress. Many of us live and die without fully understanding the different parts that created us, giving into what the mindset of the point is, and separating from ourselves. Known to many more, many of us have long ago checked out of ourselves, allowing the empty shells that represent us to live and make decisions on our behalf. Very few people we meet challenge these empty vessels speaking on our behalf because they stand up against finely tuned defense mechanisms and, as previously established, steering clear from injury to self is in the best interest of each individual. Because of stunted experiences, we are unable to embrace the only medicine that is appropriate for broken selves, that being compassion and selflessness, even though we know how to emulate, plan, and vary these stuff. After all, we are intelligent beings that are innately adaptable and that conform to acceptable societal standards. Working on the premise that only love breaks down walls, I conclude that only self-love can try to bridge the gaps between our various personalities and their different goals. This remedy's tragedy stems from an innate inability to accept, let alone reciprocate, love and selflessness, as they two aspects trigger well-hidden and showcase trauma sites under a powerful armor of strength and resilience. Knowing love is giving love, yet faulty machinery cannot generate the kind of love needed to bring about the restorative power.